mortgages for residents. So we've done a video just now for non-residents, so you can turn to that video if you are a non-resident. This video is for residents of the UAE looking for mortgage. I want to introduce my friend Warren. Great to meet you. Well, here on this video, I've just met you the first time. You've been here for 20 years, right?
Yes.
Okay, doing mortgages, helping a lot of people with their dream homes. So look, when it comes to resident mortgages, we want to know what's happening. It's January 2024. So let's start with the question everybody's going to want to know first. Up to how much can we borrow with your help?
Okay. Yes, it's always a big question.
Yeah.
80% is the maximum you can
Not bad.
finance for property up to 5 million.
Okay.
If you go over 5 million,
Yep.
it drops down 10% to 70%.
Okay, so 80%.
And that's the first property you acquire.
Right, okay. Yeah. Now, you also mentioned to me you could do something with fees, right?
Yes, there's a number of the banks, probably 2/3 of the banks will actually finance the same ratio, so 80% of the transaction fees, where
Right.
you've got DLD, agency fees, etc.
Yeah.
80% of them, they'll also roll into the loan as well.
Okay.
So it kind of puts the net amount you need out of pocket as a minimum as 22%.
Okay, so you've got to find your 22% and the banks are going to learn the rest. Just those fees are these, like the stamp duty and the agency fee. So the fees on top of a property price is 6%. You'll probably know that from one of my other videos, but so that's what he's saying. They will also lend 80% on those fees in addition. So that's great to know. I didn't know that actually. Okay, so in terms of the process, so what is it that you need from somebody in order to get them a mortgage?
Well, initially we'll just have a call with the clients,
Yep.
establish what they're looking to do,
Okay.
briefly find out about their circumstances, their income, their outgoings,
Yep.
age. We'll then send them a report outlining the top 3 options
Yep.
that match their requirements.
Okay.
Because it's not all about rates, it could be different parameters. It
Yep.
just depends on the situation.
Yep.
We'll agree together and answer all the questions that they have on which product we're going to choose.
Okay.
They will then authorise us to work on their behalf with the bank.
Yep.
We'll send them the application forms, everything's required.
Okay.
That can be then scanned back to us.
Yeah.
We then submit the process and we're with the client through every step of the way.
Okay.
Through the pre-approval,
Right the way through.
evaluation
Yep.
stage, arranging the final transfer with,
Yep.
with yourself and
Yep.
the sellers.
Up until the
right
transfer
the way
date.
through
Okay.
until the end to make sure
That
their
it's all
best
done.
interests are protected at all times.
So basically we need salary slips, and can you just define what is a resident for your point of view?
Yes, it's a common
It's
misperception
important.
that you can access resident products just by having a visa. Now, that's not the
So you
case.
can't have a visa here as a resident only for a mortgage. What do you need?
No, what I'm saying is
Yeah.
you just because you have a resident visa or a golden visa, a lot of
Yeah.
people have now, doesn't qualify you
Oh.
as being a resident for lending in the eyes of the bank.
Right,
Banks based at the lending on where your income is derived from.
which is
So if it's
here.
outside of the UAE,
Yeah.
you'd be non-resident. If it's here, then you're resident.
Okay, so income has to be from UAE source
Correct.
for you to be a resident in terms of a mortgage from the bank. So you can have a golden visa, you could be living here with a rental contract with no income. That means you can't get a mortgage.
It means you can get a mortgage,
But a non-resident
But it'll be a non-resident mortgage. Which
Okay.
actually,
Yeah.
there isn't a huge difference with
Yeah,
now.
but it's good to
it
know
will be
that.
different in the loan to value, but
Right.
not the actual pricing anymore.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
gone more beneficial.
Yeah.
to clients.
Okay. No, that's good to hear. Okay. So, in terms of how quick can we get? You know, everybody who knows me knows that we need a pre-approval letter in place before you can go see properties. How quickly can you get them a pre-approval?
Depending on which bank we're looking at, it
Yeah.
could be 4 hours,
Yep.
or it could be typically 5 days for somebody
Okay.
who's salaried,
Okay.
or I would say probably 10 working days if somebody's self-employed.
Okay, so from 4 hours to 10 working days, and of course that's a lot to do with the client getting back to you with their paperwork, right?
It is,
So if
and
you're
just-
slow,
Yeah, we
it's
can-
not his fault.
No, we can only work with what we've got.
Yeah, okay. I've had clients going back, and I'm like, "Well, did you give you the papers?" And they're like, "Well, I'm sorry, I was on holiday."
Plan in advance.
Yeah, planning in
If
advance.
the more you do in advance, the less
Yeah.
stressful you'll make the whole
Okay.
experience.
Now, talk to us about interest rates. What are the interest rates right now?
Well,
What's the
interest
lowest?
rates are have just been reduced actually in the last
Oh,
week.
amazing. Good news.
Typically, probably give you a bit of context.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID rates were typically 4%. And
Okay.
had been around that level for a decade or more.
Yep.
During COVID, stimulus by the UAE Central Bank saw rates drop down to close to 2%.
Wow. Yeah,
Half,
obviously.
half almost what they usually were.
Yep.
And then post-COVID, we've seen inflationary problems globally because
Yep.
we're pegged to the dollar.
Yep.
the central bank has followed US Fed rates going up.
Right.
So we hit a bit of a high about 2 months ago. We're at 5.5
Okay.
that the banks were charging,
Yep.
going up to probably 6.5. But now we've seen recently banks dropping back down, even though the base rate stayed the same.
Yep.
Banks are being more generous in what they're doing. They've dropped the base rate down. They dropped their lending rates down
Okay.
to as low as sort of 4% again now.
Yeah.
So we're
Oh,
not too
wow.
far away from where we started, which is
So
great.
around the 4%
Yeah,
is
exactly.
your lowest.
It's the lowest.
Okay.
Typical 4.5.
Okay. So
But
4.5.
if you compare that to other markets now, the mature markets, we're ahead of them finally.
very promising.
Because normally,
Yeah.
I'm being told that it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So,
And of course, for those of you that may not be aware, I'm sure you are, we are pegged to the US dollar. So that's why obviously that happens. Now, age, that's a really important question I get asked all the time. How old can they take a salary, a mortgage up to now?
So typically it's 65 if you're salaried,
Okay.
or 70 if you're self-employed.
That's amazing.
But we've just seen great news
Brilliant.
for the market, which
Yes.
we think is that banks starting to change to allow everybody just to be on the same level playing field,
Okay.
70 years of age.
70.
So
Is
that
the new
allows-
50.
Yeah, allows an extra 5 years, which reduces your costs, can
Definitely.
increase your affordability. So it's a good,
That's
it's a good
fabulous
factor.
news. Right. So there we go, folks. We're getting healthier as we get older. So that's really
Absolutely.
promising. And you said that's just a change.
Literally
that's
in the last
happened
few days.
In the last few days. So you heard it here first. That's really good news. Really excited. Okay. So tell us about who can borrow in terms of profile demographics. Like
It's very
Yeah.
flexible. It's very flexible these
Okay.
days. I mean, it used to be very rigid. Now, literally, you could have, the first month in your job still on probation.
Okay.
We can find a solution.
right.
You can have a business that's a new business that's 6 months old.
Yeah.
We can find a solution.
Okay. Okay,
So
And then profile?
I mean, just don't rule anything out.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of clients come to us, and for whatever reason, we can't do anything immediately.
Okay.
But we tell them what they can do to plan.
So they can
in a
prepare.
few months' time,
Yeah.
they can prepare,
Okay.
get things ready,
Yeah.
and then we'll work together to make
Okay.
sure that we get it across the line.
And in terms of who can borrow, you said to me earlier, husband and wife profile can borrow together. Who else?
Basically, currently at the moment,
Yeah.
the banks will only lend to husband and wife,
Right.
parent and child, and
Yeah.
siblings in certain cases.
Okay.
I think this is going to be the next thing that will change,
gonna change,
this year,
right, okay.
to allow unrelated parties to lend together. Young professionals. It
Okay.
would be a perfect move for the market. I mean,
Yeah.
the central bank allows it. There's
Yeah.
no regulations for the banks not to do it.
But the banks are choosing.
They just haven't
Right.
taken it up yet.
Okay.
In the same way as the
Yeah.
age changes have just changed recently,
Yeah.
that they've
It's
been
evolving,
allowed. They've been
isn't
allowed
it?
to do that for a long time. They
Yeah.
just haven't.
Yeah.
Now it's going to help other banks be more competitive than others if they're being more flexible, offering these things.
Yeah.
So it's good for the market, good for the
No, that's
consumer.
really good. And just out of interest, how many banks in total are you working with here in the
We work
UAE?
across them all. There's 22 banks at
Right.
the moment.
So you're a mortgage broker, so you are neutral to every bank, and it's in your interest for your client to decide on the best package.
Absolutely. We work for the client,
best
not
client.
the client,
yeah.
not the bank.
Yeah. And tell us, what are your fees that you charge for mortgages to our clients?
Typically, if the loan size is over 1 million dirhams,
Yeah.
0 fee.
Free.
Below-
Did you hear that? Free.
Below 1 million, every 2.5 to 5,000 dirhams. Again,
Okay.
only on a positive result, getting the
Yeah.
client what they want.
Success fee at the end.
At the end of the
Okay.
transaction. correct.
No, that's great. So it's free if you're a resident for a mortgage. And yeah, I think that really covers everything. I think another question as well is, if you want to borrow from a business, is that possible here? Or do you sort of recommend that they have a meeting with you one-to-one? Like,
No,
what
it
would you
is
suggest?
possible to
Yeah.
establish a property being owned via a business. I'm
Yeah.
lending against that. We need to sort of define the reasoning why somebody wants to do
Okay.
that, because
Yep.
it might not provide the requirements that they expect.
think that they
they're
want.
gonna
Yeah,
get from it,
okay.
basically. So
Yeah,
we can sort of fathom that out pretty quickly, and
Okay.
if that's something they want to do, we can do it.
So we just set up an appointment. So I get asked that a lot. So if you're thinking, I'd like to borrow against a business, best thing, get in touch again. My number's on the bottom of the description. We'll put you in touch and have an appointment. So, there's lots of one-to-one case scenarios. Okay, so this question I get asked a lot. Tell us more about refinancing here. As a resident in the UAE, you own a property, you want to refinance. How does
Yeah,
that
it's
work?
possible.
Yep.
It's the same process as the mortgage process.
Okay.
but there are regulations defined by the central bank of what you can do now.
Okay.
So basically, if you're looking to release equity from your property, it can only be used to buy another property in the UAE.
Any property?
Any property can be off plan also, it doesn't need to be finished, but the bank will want to make the payment, the manager check to the recipient that needs to be obviously the seller, and there'll be documents that you show.
So it's direct to whoever you're purchasing,
correct. Whether that's a developer or an individual, correct. Or
Okay.
equity release is allowed as well,
Yeah.
Up to 20% of the property value.
You mean, yeah.
So if you've got a property of 5 million, they will lend you 1 million being 20% to do the renovation cost. And depending on how much you are refinancing, they will possibly still want to make it directly payable to the contractors.
Okay.
So it's
again,
we can offer advice of how that can be done as well. It's
so you mean somebody has a villa and they want to renovate it, they can get refinancing 20% of the value of the property day one, or the property value when it's finished and fully renovated?
Or they wait till the end to do it, and then we would value it on the refurbished property that will have a higher value.
Obviously,
and it all depends on the client's circumstances when they would need those funds during the whole process. But it's, absolutely, it's possible.
Great.
It's happening a lot at the moment with clients renovating properties.
Okay, case by case scenario, fantastic. So I think that covers all my questions. Just really, you're in very good hands when you're working with both of us. I can take you through the property purchase or sale, and obviously I can introduce you here, sit you down, Warren, and go through all of what you need for the mortgage side of things. So thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. As always, subscribe to my channel, like if you found this of value, and in the description below you'll see our contact number, and then you can get in touch and we can set up a meeting. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to helping you next with your property mortgage here in Dubai.